Hello guys, ayan. Good afternoon everyone. It's actually 4 p.m. here in London and welcome to COVID Warriors Corner, which is a Facebook group tribute to the frontliners. And of course, good evening, and I think it's morning, nighttime, or midnight in the Philippines. Hello to my family in the Philippines. Are actually sleeping now. Unfortunately, they sleep early. So hello to my dad, Ela Hidalgo, of course my brothers, Delay and Delon, my sister-in-law, Emily, my niece and nephews, Diva Divo, and Dale, and of course my sister in South Korea. Hope you're all well. And of course, guys, please do keep safe. We're still fighting against this invisible enemy. So do your part. Be a frontliner yourself as well. Wash your hands. Wear your mask. Of course, you have to do social distancing. And I always say, I believe that prayer is one weapon or it's the best weapon to fight this COVID-19. And of course, guys, we have special guests this afternoon. We are paying tribute to the OFW or the Overseas Filipino Workers, most especially to our nannies, because one of our guests paid tribute to her nanny, which is a Filipina, and she actually wrote a book. But before anything else, before we discuss about that, I would like to shout out to all our friends and who are watching right now on Facebook. We have Kuya Fresh. Hi, Kuya Fresh. So I don't know if who's watching right now. But anyway, guys, if you want to comment, please do put your name at the end of your comment because sometimes we don't see it. It's just saying like Facebook user, hi Ma'am Cathy Gonzaga ba yan? Si Cathy Gonzaga. Anyway, I'm gonna speak English and Tagalog today because we have, of course, a special guest today, so that she can understand as well. And of course, yeah, that's what I said. And ayan. So thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon. And as you all know, guys, Philippines is a country that actually exports, of course, Filipino workers abroad. Sila yung tayong may pinakamalaking workers na pumupunta sa ibang abroad. Actually, it's 2019, according to the statistics, it's 2.2 million Filipinos they went abroad to work, and I think it was 56% of them are Filipina or women, and 44% are, of course, male. So ang tanong ko bakit, why is it that Filipino women, there are more Filipino women going abroad than Filipino men. So I don't know. I have been asking that question even before. Bakit mas maraming mga Filipino women na nag-a-abroad kaysa sa mga Filipino? So ayan, yan ang isang tanong ko. Pakisagot ninyo guys. Ano kaya ang puro-puro ninyo ang palagay ninyo kung bakit mas maraming mga Filipino women kaysa sa Filipino men? And of course, guys, mamimigay din po kami ng mga prizes later, of course, courtesy of our guests. So, of course, Feli Rodrigo will be giving mobile loads. Filipino viewers, pay attention sa mga interview natin kasi mamimigay po si Feli Rodrigo sa guest natin ng load sa Philippines. And of course, we have our other guest, of course, she's giving away a copy of her book. So please stay tuned, listen to the interview para manalo kayo ng prize. And sabi ko, Happy Valentine's to Ma'am Ella. Yeah, I'm wearing a red for Valentine's Day because I'm not having a show on Valentine's Day because I have an appointment. I have a date with a consultant specialist. Anyway, I'm going to sing a song for everyone, guys. This is actually a song dedicated to all mommies out there, to all mommies who work abroad. This is a song about a daughter who received a letter from her mom who is working abroad. So I hope this song, you will like it. And guys, please do comment if you can hear me clearly. So this song is for all the moms out there. Mama, she wrote me a letter saying she's gonna be fine. Please take good care of your sister. I'll be home in 3 years' time. Mama, it seems like forever you were a good teacher in the same school, for I can't survive. She had to go. I need her. I want to be with her. And we'll be together once English teacher, she told me she wants to be where you are. Mama, she's leaving her family to find all the money she wants. London, Vancouver, Hong Kong, promise how sleeper on earth. What is to happen to all of those children with mothers who travel so far? Oh, it's so late in London. I want to believe that she's fine. She could be living in London. I want to know what she had to know. I need her. I want to be with her. I want to be with her. Yes, so that song is dedicated to every mama out there, and I understand there are children out there in the Philippines asking why. Why, Mama? Why did you leave me? So we're gonna tell you later on. Why did she leave her daughter behind in the Philippines? And she had to work in. I think she started working in Abu Dhabi and then in London. Anyway, guys, of course, thank you so much for supporting COVID Warriors Corner. We've been 10 months now since the pandemic started. And of course, we are raising funds, guys, for our various initiative and charity works. And as a way of raising funds, we're selling these mugs. And of course, we have this t-shirt. Actually, we have a hoodie as well. We have a hoodie. I forgot to download it in here. So we're raising funds, guys, to help out, to support our frontliners, not only here in the UK but also in the Philippines. And you all know, guys, since we started this COVID Warriors Corner, we've been giving support to the frontliners here in UK during the first lockdown. We've been giving away packed lunches and, of course, groceries from our sponsors. And of course, in the Philippines, we had 5 meal services, which is in collaboration with TV film actress Lovely Rivero. So we've fed the homeless, the frontliners, and the typhoon victims in Marikina. And of course, yung flood flash po na nangyari sa Cagayan. So we've donated, of course, finances, and they bought lights and other commodities that they need to survive. And the relief goods, according to the shipping company that we've sent to, it's on the way. On the way pa lang po yung relief goods natin. So thank you so much to all those donations and supports that you've given us here in COVID Wars 4. And of course, thank you so much sa mga bumili na po ng mga merchandise natin. And before anything else, before I introduce the very first guest, there's one lady from Davao City who would like to, of course, dedicate a song to our guests and to everyone who are watching right now. So let's hear it, guys. Let's hear from a beautiful voice of Chloe Palar. Okay, so you can just sing.
Hello po. Ella for inviting me here in this show po. Thank you so
I'll talk
much.
to you soon, Chloe. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much. Yeah, so that's Chloe Pilar from Davao. She'll be back later on for a fan talk. And of course, let's go down. I have a lot of messages in here and comments. Shout out. Please, can you put your name at the end of your comment para naman ma-recognize kayo. And please be sure that you are a member of COVID Warriors Corner to be able to win the giveaways this afternoon. And yes, guys, so our first special guest is, of course, a British photographer based in London. Her focus is on social documentary portraiture and advertising photography. And her work has been published and exhibited worldwide. And of course, she published this book. It's Someone Else's Mother. You can see it, guys. Okay, so she's the author of Someone Else's Mother. And she said in here that as a child, she was looked after by a Filipina woman called Junie, and who lived with Caroline's family in London for 22 years. We're gonna talk about her book. So please, guys, please do buy this book on Amazon. It's actually a very interesting story. Yeah. So let's welcome on the stream, guys, Miss Caroline Irby. Hello, good afternoon to you, Caroline. How are you?
Hi, Ella. Thank you for the singing. You almost had me in tears with your song about the mother returning to see her daughter in the Philippines in 3 years' time. Who wrote that? Can you hear me?
It's actually a wrote by Ryan Cayabyab. It's one of a famous composer in the Philippines.
It's beautiful.
I don't know. Am I chappy to you or you're chappy? Because it seems like you're chappy.
Yeah, you're choppy to me as well.
Or maybe it's just the internet connection. Yeah, but by the way, how are you, Caroline? How are you coping during this pandemic?
Well, I'm not sure where all of your viewers are, how many are in the UK and how many are in other parts of the world. So I may be stating the obvious, but in London, we're in lockdown. It feels like we've been in it for a very long time, and I have 2 children who are 8 and 10 years old, so we're in the world of homeschooling right now. And I am with them Monday to Thursday, and my husband's home Friday on the weekend, so then I'm able to work outside of the house. I was shooting this morning, but in general, I'm looking after my children, and the days blend into one. But at least we're safe, we're in the home, we have space. Things could be a lot worse.
Yeah, it's really your chatty. I don't know why. Uh, I think there's something wrong with our internet connections right now, but hopefully the viewers, I don't know if you can hear us clearly. But anyway, you're a photojournalist. So how did pandemic affect your job as a photojournalist?
Oh, well, it affects it hugely because
Hello.
a lot of my work usually is international and I'm not able to travel at the moment. Um, and oh, well, it affects it hugely because
Hello.
now a lot of my work usually is international and I'm not able to travel at the moment. And oh, well, it affects it hugely because
Hello.
now a lot of my work is international and I'm not able to travel at the moment. And Ella, I'm just hearing the same thing again and again. I'm hearing something I said a minute ago.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with the. I think there's something wrong with the internet. I'm just trying to work it out.
I can maybe I'll try doing it on my telephone if I click the link on my phone to connect that way.
Okay, just try it again.
Said a minute ago.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with the. I think there's something.
I'm going to enter via
Hello.
try entering via my phone now and see if that works better.
Yeah. Okay, you're free now.
Got two of me.
That's it. I don't know if you.
So I'm going to get rid of my iPad. There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yeah. I think that's better.
Sorry, I'm just going to turn off this one device. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, that's it. I think that's better.
Ella, can you hear me now?
Yes, yeah, I do. I can hear you. How about you? Can you hear
I
me?
can't hear you. It sounds like a woodpecker.
Hello?
I can just hear.
Can you hear me? It's still the same.
Ella, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, I do. I can hear you.
I'm going to try
Hello?
joining again.
Okay. Yes, guys. So we're just waiting for our guest to join. I think there's something wrong with the internet as well here. So while waiting for Caroline, I'm just gonna flash. Oh, I think she's here. Yes. Hello.
Can
Can
you
you
hear
hear
me?
me? Yes. Yeah.
I can't hear you at all.
I can. How about you? Can you hear me?
Can any of your viewers send you a message asking, letting you know whether they can hear you or not? Because I can only hear like a
Yeah.
rattling.
Guys, can you let us know if you can hear me? Hello.
I can hear you now, actually. Sorry, Ella, you've now
Okay.
come back to me.
All right. That's good. So yes. So my next question is actually you mentioned about your kids. So how did you educate your kids about this pandemic? Because they're not no longer going to school, or are they still going to school physically?
No, my children have not been at school since
Or they're
early
online?
December. They're online at home with me. I've been teaching them about the pandemic through conversation, and they watch the news and we read the news. But to be honest, I think, they've been living it for the last 11 months. And in the span of a child's life, 11 months is a really long time. So it's become normal to them. I feel like they've almost forgotten. They don't expect life to be like it was before. Every day we do exactly the same thing. They just do their schoolwork and then we go to the park, and they never ask to do anything else. But they don't really reflect on the pandemic because it's just normal. They're more interested in other things happening in the world, like Marcus Rashford and free school dinners and Greta Thunberg and the US president. They're interested in those things. But I think it's, for children right now, the pandemic is normal. But they're very, on autopilot. They come back home and they wash their hands and they keep clean, and it's difficult to make them keep their distance from people when we go to the park. That's one thing that they've not got good at, is respecting other people's space. They still kind of are bombarding all over the place. But I will be very happy for them and for all children when they can be free to see their families and friends again. It's such a strange period where they spend so little time with other children.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because I mean, there's some I saw some videos like children wanting to go to the seaside, and they were like they're crying or forcing their mom or their dad to want to go outside, or but that. So it's all right now because of this pandemic that's going on. I mean, the virus that's going on right now, especially the new strain, which is the transmission is quicker than the original one.
Yes, exactly.
So
we're being super careful.
And of course,
Sorry, Ella, it's frozen for me again.
I think that's it.
Can you say that again? I
and then you work as a photographer. And where did you get your passion, or when did you start having this passion of going on photography?
I was 13, and my father, he gave me his old manual Olympus camera, and I just fell in love with it from the start. I loved how it gave me permission to look at people and to go to places that I wouldn't normally go to, and to really look hard. I loved the kind of magic of being in the dark room when I was a teenager. It was a quiet space, and I was at a boarding school, and there were not many places where you could have your own space, but the dark room was one of them. I loved it. And then when I was 18, I did some work experience at a photo agency called Magnum, which is an agency was set up in Paris. It's an agency of photojournalists, and I was sort of meeting my heroes, and that really cemented my desire to be a photojournalist once I finished university.
Just slow your up. I don't know. I don't know why it's my internet is so slow at the moment. Okay, there's like a delay of your answer. But anyway, yeah, you've been working for a long time as a photographer. I think you've been over places in the world, photographing people and of course events. So do you have did you photograph any famous or well-known people in the world? Who was the most, or who's the most famous people that you've been that you photographed already?
Well, I spent a week in Cambodia with David Beckham for UNICEF, and with Keira Knightley in Chad for UNICEF, and Ewan McGregor in Peru, and in Malawi. And I've photographed lots of actors in London, like Nicole Kidman and Benedict Cumberbatch, Kate Blanchett, James McAvoy. I spent a week with Gugu and Martha Raw in Uganda, and yeah, lots of crazy people. I mean, they're not crazy, but it's the situations that I meet them in are quite extraordinary. To be in a refugee camp with a superstar, a funny combination.
So it's more like you're doing work in with UNICEF, as you said. That's why you've met those people, those famous people.
Some of them, yeah, UNICEF, but also UNHCR, which is the UN's High Commission for Refugees, and then also just various other like photo assignments for magazines and work for various different organizations has led me to make portraits of or document those people, in London and other parts of the world.
Yeah, someone is saying, hello, Madam Caroline, from Ate Marife. Yeah, I think that's in YouTube. She's there watching YouTube.
Hello, Ate Marife.
Yeah. So our interview is being shown in 3 platforms here in COVID Warriors, in my YouTube channel, and of course in my timeline. And you're the author of Someone Else's Mother. Is this your first book or your second book?
It's my second book. The first book was called A Child from Everywhere, and it consisted of a portrait and an interview with one child from every country in the world who was born in their native country but now lives in the UK. And it came from a commission from the Guardian newspaper, their magazine, and eventually it then became a book. And it was the fruit of about a year and a half spent traveling from the very north of Scotland to the north of Ireland and Wales and the south of England and everywhere between, looking for these children. I finished that project just before I had my first child, in 2010.
How long did you do the project? Like you had to compile those photos, like hundreds of photos.
Sorry, can you say that again?
How long did you work on that project?
That project was about 18 months, including all the research, because I was the one who went and found these people. And that was almost the most interesting part, actually, figuring out how to locate a child from everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, London is an amazingly diverse city, and I could have found almost all of them here, but the brief was to find them all over the UK. So, I went up to the Orkney Isles in Scotland and found a little child who came from Chile, whose father ran a salmon farm, and a boy from Cuba living on the Isle of Wight. And there are people from everywhere all over the place here, as you know.
Yeah. And how about this someone else mother? Why did you wrote this, or why did you publish this book? What is it all about?
Well, I grew up in London. I was actually born in Hong Kong, and then we moved to London when I was 2 years old. And a Filipino woman called Janine started working for my parents just before I was born, as a mother's help. And when they moved back to London, she came with them. And she then lived with us for the next 22 years. And as a child, I spent at least as much time with her as I did with my own parents, if not more. I was with her every morning before school. I was with her every afternoon. She was the one I was really intimate with. She would do my hair and she would cook, and we'd eat together. And my parents were out a lot most evenings, and I would spend the evenings with her. We'd sit in her bedroom and watch her TV while she was busy saying her rosary or filing her nails. And even on weekends, actually, I would sometimes go with her. She had like weekend jobs cleaning other people's homes, and I would go with her. I found her very comforting to be with. And when I was a teenager and I was at a Catholic school and had my confirmation, she was my sponsor. And then she retired to the Philippines in 2007, but she came back when I had each of my children to spend time with them. So we're really, really close. And I had always been aware of her family. I always knew she had these 4 children of her own who she'd had to leave in the Philippines. And I didn't know that much about them. I knew in kind of sketchy detail that they had, one was a nurse and one was an engineer, and one had stayed on the island, and one was working in Alaska. But I didn't know a huge amount. And eventually, in about 2005, I, having spent the last few years mainly on the road and working on a lot of stories about that involved migration and often refugees, I became more and more curious about Janine's backstory, the person who I was so close to and who had this whole other life that I didn't really know that much about. And so I started to interview her every time I was back in London between jobs. And she told me, in detail all about why she had left the Philippines and what her life had been like on her island. She came from an island called Bantayan, which is near Cebu. Why she had to leave and what it was like for her returning to the Philippines in general every second year, but sometimes it was longer. And she would go back, and when she first returned, her youngest child didn't recognize her, and her children were very close to their grandmother who was looking after them, and they used to call her Ma, and were then a bit confused about who Janine was returning to the island.
That would be very painful for her that her youngest son doesn't recognize her at all as her mom.
Yeah, so painful. And I actually went to her island to start working on this book in 2005. And at that point, I was really interested in the life she'd left behind, and it was quite a nostalgic approach that I had. I was trying to photograph some of the stories what I imagined her life to have been like as a child on this island, working. She was pretty poor, and her father, she was one of many, many children. Her father was a fisherman. She used to help him bring in his haul every morning before school. And she was often late for school because she was busy helping him empty the nets. And the pictures I made were all kind of about the life that had been left. And it wasn't so much focused on her children. Then I had my own children, and I didn't manage to get the book published before I had children, and realized anyway that I hadn't really finished it. So I put the book aside for a long time. I picked it up again in, sort of 15 years later or something. Not 15 years later, what am I talking about? I picked it up again. I put it down in 2008 or something. And then, picked it up probably about 2018, 2019. And realized now as a mother myself that what was really missing from the story was her own children's perspective on what it had been like for them to live without their mother, and what her return visits had been like for them.
Yeah. And then when you realized that she's looking after you all those years, and then you realized that she left her own children back home, what did you feel about that?
Well, I always knew. So in a way, it's a bit like I was describing for my own children now in COVID. When something becomes, normal, you don't think about it. So, but it's strange that such an unbearably painful thing could be normal, that someone is living with you and yet they have 4 children of their own who they're not able to see on a regular basis. So, honestly, as a child, whatever you experience, you think is normal. But we were so close, so I think I was quite tuned into her, sadnesses, and I was very aware of the phone calls that would come. Obviously, this is pre-mobile phone era. The phone calls that would come to the house phone in the middle of the night when there was a typhoon. Whenever there was a typhoon passing over her island, her children would then call the next day to say that everything was okay. Oh, it's gone very dark here suddenly, but eventually it dawned on me, eventually I grew up, and I started to be more empathetic and to really think about what it must have been like for this person to not see her children for such long periods of time. And particularly once I became a mother myself, it was, just unimaginable that you would have to leave your own children in order to provide for them, and that there would be no other way. Janine's husband had left her, when she was pregnant with her fourth child. So, you know, that she couldn't afford to educate them well without, or even quite well without
Yeah.
leaving them. But yes, it was having my own children that really tuned me in to what on earth it must have been like for her to have had to say goodbye.
And it says here, I think, from Loleng Rao, she's working as she works with children as well. She said like it's heartbreaking leaving your own child and look after someone else's children. So she said she can relate much.
Yeah,
It
I
says it's a
mean,
big sacrifice.
yeah, I'm sure it is, and I hope that modern technology makes it at least a bit easier to
Yeah.
communicate with the people you've left
Mm.
with. Not, I know it's not the same as being with them by any stretch, but when I was growing up and Janine was going back to her island every second year, there was no telephone on the island until her children were already in their, you know, late teens or 20s. So all those years she was only able to communicate via letter, which took 2 weeks to get there. And I asked her children what she used to write to them, and they all told me that she used to just basically say, you know, be good, pray, work hard, you know, make sure you're being sensible because I'm not there to get you out of trouble. So, you know, you've got to
Yeah.
take care of yourselves. So yeah, so difficult to have so little contact. But to the last lady who was messaging, the one, and there can be no compensation for leaving your own children behind, but the love that that you give to the children you look after is also not wasted. You know, that it is received. It's not that you're giving care and love and time and it goes nowhere. I feel like I wished that Janine's children had her time rather than me, but I also know that you know, I value it so much, and I feel so lucky to have grown up with this amazing woman.
And then you also mentioned that you do everything with her. You even go to with her when she goes every weekend cleaning. Do you think? Can you say that you are closer to Janine compared to your mom or to your dad? Are you closer to Janine?
Um, I don't want to say that, but we were very, very, very close, and it was, you know, the way my mother parented was very different to the way that I parent my own children. And she was, you know, she was from a kind of old English family who, you know, the people didn't really look after their own children to such a hands-on way. So my mother really cared about me, and she's a very kind woman, but she, you know, the one that I was really intimate with was Janine. And yeah, I
Yeah.
yeah.
And I saw photo in here like you're surrounded with Filipino women. And so and then of course that you heard, I mean, you see what they're doing, so you've seen what they're doing. I'm sure they do karaoke as well because Filipinos love karaoke. Did, and then of course the food. So you said like you've been eating. I mean, she's preparing mostly Filipino foods for you to eat when you were
Mhm.
when she was looking after you. So what's your favorite Filipino food?
Oh, chicken adobo. Um, I particularly the style that she makes, because I know it's different all over the Philippines,
It is, yeah.
and I've tasted some from chicken adobo from other parts of the Philippines, and I like her one the best. It's really sticky and tangy and delicious. And actually, when I went back to finish off this book 2 years ago, um, and met with her children and interviewed all of them, I took my own children with me, because, well, for lots of reasons. One of them being that Janine is now in her 80s, and I wanted them to see each other again because she's not in very good health. But also because I don't have a full-time nanny or anything to leave them with in London, and my husband's working, so actually that was the easiest way of doing it. They loved the Filipino food, and yeah, rice is the staple in our house.
Really?
Yeah, there's no potatoes here. There's not much pasta. It's rice all
No
the way.
bread, potatoes.
And eating with my hands as well, whenever possible.
Wow. So did you learn and did you learn to cook any Filipino delicacy as well?
um, she taught me how to make the most delicious rice cake, um, with brown sugar and condensed milk. And I mean, there's nothing healthy in it, and it is so delicious. But she was a character who wanted to do things for other people. So, I mean, now I cook the whole time, all kinds of things for my children. But when I was growing up and with her, she wouldn't let me do much of the cooking. She wanted to be the one. I think she enjoyed, to give pleasure as well,
Yes,
because,
yeah.
she liked caring for me. When I was 11, I went off to boarding school as well. And I know that, she tells me that she was then really lonely because she no longer then had a child to look after. She just had a house instead. So yeah, and I often think of her now when I'm doing something badly. I think about her because she would always sort of take things from me and say, oh, well, I'll just do it. She could see that I was not doing something quite perfectly, and I now have a tendency to do that with my children. I really try and stop myself. I need to let them do stuff badly and learn, but it's hard. So yeah, I can't say that I'm a fabulous cook of all Filipino food, but there are definitely large Filipino influences on the day-to-day eating that goes on in our home.
Yeah. And I know I've got friends who works with children, and sometimes they teach they teach Tagalog to them. Did Junie taught any Tagalog words?
She always used to call me Inday. Um,
Yeah.
and then I used to listen to her talking to her friends and family on the telephone. And so I learned little bits of language. She was always finishing her phone calls saying, Sigi, Sigi. And when I used to fart, she used to call it an utut. And
Yeah.
that's about it. I mean, I'm sure I probably, actually my favorite term was magli budli bud. I think that's in
Maglibad
specific to
libad
her.
to wander around
When you
or
go
to
for a
go
little
around.
walk, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I probably used the wrong emphasis, but I love that term. And come estaca and bits and pieces, but yeah, not loads.
Did you inherit any other traits or ways from Junie?
Sorry, did I inherit any?
Yeah, did you acquire any Filipino traits or ways from Junie? Because she's been with you for like 22 years of your life. So did you
uh,
acquire any?
um well, because I was with her she was the adult that I spent the most time with, so I'm sure that I acquired many traits from her, but it's difficult for me to know what they are. um she was a very calm and gentle presence, and I think with also a temper, and although I didn't see much of that, and I definitely have all those things. I had a friend of mine who actually went to the island that Janine comes from, Bantayan, without realizing at that stage that was the island that Janine was from. And but she said that she kept seeing all these women who she thought walked like me, or rather, I walked like them. I mean, I was very influenced as well by Janine's faith. She was always, in church and on cleaning rosters, and I would often go to church with her, and she was busy saying her rosary. And when I was pregnant with my children, she gave me this little sort of picture of a saint to carry around with me through pregnancy. I was definitely very influenced by her faith. But I mean, I think her influence is sort of everywhere and in everything, in every part of me. And I mean, I've definitely often spent time with Filipino people who've said to me that there's something about me that feels familiar. And it cuts both ways because, the person who I was perhaps most familiar with was from another culture. So
And there's a comment in here says, "You are so lucky, Miss Caroline, to be looked after by a Filipina nanny because she gave you a lot of care and love." So do
she
you believe that you're
did.
lucky?
I feel so lucky, and 22 years she was with my family, and I wish that she had been able to be with her family for those years, but I do feel so lucky to have had one constant source of care. Actually, it wasn't totally constant because Janine remarried an Irish man when I was about 9 or something, and she was gone for about 18 months, and it was not a happy marriage, and she then returned to the UK. But during those 18 months, we had about 4 different au pairs. They each stayed for 4 months or 5 months, or I don't know how long they stayed for, but the turnaround was pretty quick. And if I imagine, if Janine had not been living with us, probably I would have, my family would have got through about 40 au pairs during my childhood, which would have been a lot less, sort of consistent and stabilizing as a backdrop.
And you also mentioned in your book that even your is it your parents have been looked after by a nanny? How about your kids? Do you have any nanny at home, or do you hire any nanny to look after them?
We have help from an amazing woman called Jennifer twice a week. Jennifer is from the Philippines, and she's very cool. She's very funny and very feisty, and she makes me laugh so much. Very strong opinions, and she has a very different story. Her 2 sons are here, but actually they weren't here when she first started working for us. They were still in Manila, and they arrived in the UK in January, just over 2 years ago, which was such a joy. And I actually have a recording of her telling me, the first time I saw her after her sons had arrived, she was talking about what it felt like for them to be here, and it was just so wonderful to hear her that I recorded it. And every now and then I listen back to it because it just makes me so happy. Her saying that she cannot believe that this thing that she had hoped for all of her adult life has finally come true. She has her children here with her. She can cook for them. She can sit on the sofa and relax with them. She can take care of them herself. But because my experience in my childhood was that the person I became really intimate with was the person who looked after me, I really wanted to try to look after my own children as much as possible. So it's me looking after them, although I'm very grateful for the time that Jennifer spends with us as well, because she's a great influence. To be honest though, I'm not sure that I could live with knowing that someone was looking after my children and not able to be with their own children. I think that must be, I think I feel too guilty.
Anyway, we have. I think this is from Kelly. She said like she will bring you a sticky rice pudding.
Yummy, thank you.
Yeah.
My brother, who's 2 years older than me, he's the one who makes that sticky rice more than me. Also a
Ah.
big fan.
Yeah. And are you still planning to go back to the Philippines
Yeah,
to visit
definitely.
Philippines?
My children say that it was definitely the most exciting thing they'd ever done. And they talk, my husband didn't come, and they talk about it often with him, and they really want him to come too. I really want to see Janine again. And her children, who I'm really fond of, who are all a few years older than me, and who have been so welcoming to me and forgiving as well. I feel like, if it was my mother who'd gone off to the other side of the world to look after another child, I might really resent that child. Hope I wouldn't, but I might. And they've been so lovely. And when I took them my children to the island, and they spent time with Janine's children, they were in their 40s and 50s. They were so lovely with my kids, and it somehow felt like kind of coming full circle. It felt like a sort of, some kind of closure, seeing all of them together. But I definitely, I want to go back and see all of them. And Janine, she's not getting any younger. So, I mean, I'm sure that all of you watching are wondering when you're going to next be able to go to the Philippines. And it must be so difficult for you to not know when the doors will be open again, or when it will be safe to travel.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, it's not something
At the
I'm
moment,
thinking
they're
about
still
very
closed
actively
for.
right now. Sorry,
Yeah,
say that
at the
again.
moment, they're still closed for non. Philippines is still closed for non-Filipino travelers. I don't know when they're gonna open. Even me, I
Yeah,
cannot go home because I have a British passport, right? So they're not allowing me to enter the
yeah,
Philippines.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Do you plan to go somewhere else as well aside from Cebu? Or
Sorry, do I plan?
have you seen or have you seen any other places in the Philippines aside from Cebu?
Um, I have only been to Manila, and
That's
where Janine's daughter works as a nurse, and I've spent time with her there. But I have not really been to. I mean, I've been to a couple of other islands near in the Cebu region, but nowhere else. And I'd love to. There are so many places that look really incredible. But when I go to the Philippines, it's kind of all about seeing Janine. Although, yeah, next time I go, I would like to make the most of being there and see some of the other beautiful places, and maybe take my children too.
Yeah, I know. Like, I know that here, like, there are a lot of Filipinos right now watching. They're so proud and they're so happy that you made the book for a Filipina, Danny. Where can they buy this book?
You can buy it on Amazon. That would be the cheapest place for you to buy it. But it's on. You can also order it from any bookshop, your local bookshop. It's in Waterstones, Daunt Books. You can buy it from the publisher, which is Schilt. If you just put it into Google, the book will come up, and you'll see different places that you can buy it. And in the Philippines, I don't know. I mean, I know that the distributor, which is Thames and Hudson, is distributing worldwide, but I shipped a big box of these books to Janine's, one of her sons who works on a cruise ship. He was stuck in Manila for a long time waiting for kind of COVID to shift and for him to start work again. And he asked me to send all of the books for Janine and the other siblings to Manila. I sent them there in July, and they're still stuck in customs. And is that normal? Still, they haven't cleared customs there.
Yeah, I think right now it's really difficult to send packages back to the Philippines because we actually sent a package like December a box until now they haven't received it yet.
I missed
So as
that
we
last bit.
sorry.
I missed that last bit.
Uh, just like me, like I sent a box, like a package back to the
Yeah,
Philippines last November. Until now, they haven't received it yet. So I think
yeah,
it's very difficult right now because of the pandemic. But hopefully, maybe you can try to contact the national bookstore as well, and then you can sell your book to
yeah,
national bookstore. Yeah, in the
yeah,
Philippines.
yeah.
Yeah, it's actually a very interesting story. But there's a side thing in here that they need to know why. So they need to buy your book. So, but it's very interesting and it's very beautiful story. So you need to buy, guys. And of course, you're giving away. How many books you're giving away to our viewers right now?
3. I'm gonna
Three
give
books.
3 away
Okay.
to yes, you have to let me know who I'm sending them to, and I will send them.
Yes. So we're gonna. I'm actually like gonna ask questions after our interview. For them to answer. It's based on our interview, of course. So if they can